You're now listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.
Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host. And today we are speaking to Scott Bottoms, who represents the Colorado House of Representatives in District 15, which includes much of eastern Colorado Springs and Cimarron Hills in El Paso County. He has been married to his wife, Linda, for 34 years. They have 3 grown children, 2 daughter-in-laws, and 3 grandchildren. Representative Bottoms has lived in Colorado for 28 years. Almost 13 of those years have been in Colorado Springs. He is a pastor and received his undergraduate degree in Christian Church Ministries from Southwestern Assemblies of God University, a master's in intercultural leadership, and finished with a Doctor of Ministry in intercultural spiritual leadership. He is also a United States Navy veteran and the pastor of church at Briargate in Colorado Springs. He is an accomplished musician, enjoys jeeping, mountain biking, and golf. We welcome him. Hello, Representative Bottoms. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you have this is your second term as a House Representative, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about your path to the legislature, because you're also a pastor. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I've been a pastor for over 30 years. And so this started with a representative that came and just gave me a call and said, I think you should run for this office. And I rejected that. I didn't think that was me. I just a pastor. And so I resisted it. I got another phone call from another representative. I had another guy that's a voice in my life. He speaks to my life quite a bit. He said the same thing. So then this one representative said, the last time I talked to them, that they said, well, will you consider praying about this? And I thought, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. That sounds like a trap. And so I did begin to pray about it, and my wife and I really began to pray about it, and felt like this is what we're supposed to do. And I did not realize how the timelines were. This is the first time I've ever done this. And so I jumped in literally the exact last day that you could fill out the paperwork, did all that, and was elected overwhelmingly, strongly. I had like 2 weeks for the entire campaign before the assembly, which is where I was put in as the primary position. So.
Wow. Okay. And you have also, you're gunning for another office, I've heard.
Yes, I'm also running for governor for 2026. Similar process, really kind of resistant. This was a few months process instead of a few days. And we've already declared everything's set up. I can give information on the website and stuff like that. And I think it's going online. Actually, I think it went online yesterday.
Okay. Best of luck. What, in terms of this, since this is your second term as a House Representative, what would you say? We talk about politics being like an individual sport, maybe a team sport, kind of hard to tell. What would you say that you feel like your biggest accomplishment that you have contributed to in terms of the legislature?
So being a representative there is a team mentality. You are part of, so there's layers, right? You're part of the Republican Party, unless you're Democrat or Republican. You're part of the Republican Party. You're also part of, within the House itself, you're part of the Republican caucus in the House, which is all the Republican members that are in the House. And then, the Senate, they're kind of their own group, but they have a Republican caucus in the Senate too. We interact with them some, but really not as much as I thought we would when we got there. But so you are trying to work together. There's strategy, there's things that you do, but you also have to remember that you are elected by a specific group of people. My district is House District 15, and you're elected by them, right? So I actually am representing, that's the terminology, I'm representing those, it's almost 100,000 people. I represent those 100,000 people. And so sometimes there's going to be some conflicts. You'll see this across the caucus where, most Republicans will vote this way, but then this, maybe 2 or 3 representatives will vote the opposite way. And sometimes that can be frustrating. There's some conflict there. There's some tension there. It's not usually, I'm not the same when it comes to a lot of these people. And this is going to answer the rest of the question. I don't struggle as much as others when somebody doesn't vote a certain way or does. I don't really sweat that. Let them do what they want to do, because at the end of the day, they have to be accountable for that vote. And if they have thought through it, they'll make the right decision. They'll be accountable. But sometimes representatives don't get reelected because they voted um, not Republican or not conservative, although those are not the same thing. They are in the same category. They don't vote when they don't get reelected. Um, I stand strongly on my principles, my values. These are biblically founded principles and values, and so I do. I do. Sometimes I'm one of the only one or two names on that have voted. They're on the board. That's what I was about to say. That shows the vote. Maybe the only one that's different than everyone else. It's happened a few times, and maybe only two, three, or four that are different. Now, with my second term, we're seeing this because we have had a changeover in the last election with the Republicans, and we are starting to see the Republican Party at large voting a little more conservative this time, and that's encouraging to me because some of my disagreements and conflict the first 2 years was against other Republicans, not because I was saying you should vote a certain way, but because they were upset at me that I was taking a stand on something they didn't think was important enough to take a stand, or maybe should spend a lot of time talking about this, or whatever the case is. So yes, it's a group sport, sort of. Really, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to be accountable for you as an individual, your votes, what you say in the well, you have to be accountable to that.
So what would you feel like your best accomplishment? You think that it's standing out? Is that what I'm hearing?
So the best accomplishment, really, it's kind of a, if you back up a little bit. So this is also, in fact, this was just told me about 3 weeks ago. I was trying to pass a bill, and one of the Democrats, leader in the Democrat side of the House, they came to me and said the Democrats do like your bill. They would like to vote for your bill. Problem is we have an agreement we will not vote for any bill that has your name on it. Well, that's very unethical, lacks integrity. And but he was trying to convince me, if you'll say this and this and this, and I showed him my notes that I was going to speak on when I presented the bill, and included all those things. And I said everything that he said I should say. The Democrats voted against a bill that I was on just because my name was on it. And so my accomplishments are not ever going to be you pass this many bills. In fact, the Republicans don't want me on their bills. And I understand this. This does not upset me. Because if my name's on it, it won't get voted in. So they don't want me on their bill. And I get that. I'll never come to them and say, hey, let me on this bill. The bad part is that's not good governance. That's just a bad idea. You're voting on a person rather than something that could actually help the people of the state, which my bill is going to do. So my biggest accomplishment really is being a voice that gets outside that building. I'm a voice in the room. People do pay attention to what I'm saying, even though they may dislike it. But being a voice of truth, and I'm going to speak truth to whatever the situation is, whatever the bill is. I don't have ulterior motives. I don't have lobbyists convincing me of something. And the rest of them do have to worry about those things. I don't. And so, yeah, that's my greatest accomplishment is really being able to get truth of what's going in that room, outside of that room.
All right. So in terms of the session, last session, there were quite a few gun bills. This session, there's quite a few gun bills. I do want to narrow down on some, but did you have any feedback on the fact that there's so many of them?
Yeah, this is something that's never going to stop as long as you have a very leftist Marxist mentality in the House, and we do. The Marxism, which always leads to communism, Marxism, people cannot have guns because Marxism will eventually take away, which, by the way, is a lot of bills are doing this too. They take away your First Amendment rights, take away your freedoms, take away your religious freedoms. We have bills that are run constantly that attack the freedoms of the people of Colorado. Well, as long as you have the Second Amendment, which says you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government, which is what we are experiencing in Colorado, is a tyrannical government. Via not just the the governor, but the House of Legislators too. It's guns are what defends you against the tyranny, and so they have to constantly be attacking, take away your guns, because that's the only way that you'll be able to eventually stop the First Amendment. And so we've seen those. This is my third year, and we've already seen quite a bit. But we saw some of the exact same bills, the ones that didn't get passed. But they've passed probably 7 or 8 each session that are very egregious. They attack the Second Amendment. This one this year, so we do have 003. That's the big one, right? That one has already it came out of the Senate, which is unique because most years they come out of the House. They get passed through the House very quickly because the House is nuts, and so then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate seems to have a little bit of common sense, and they don't pass it. This one started in the Senate, which is a bad sign, and it's already come through that process. Now this week it's going to be in committee in the House. And that's going to literally be an all-day affair. They'll be there till midnight or 1 or 2 or whatever. I just argued a bill last week that was there until 2 o'clock in the morning. And they laid my other one over, and I'm going to be arguing that one this week, and it's probably going to last a long time. 003, that's Senate Bill 25003. That one is going to be debated. They've already passed the ammunition bill, which basically is taking away the ability of 18, 19, 20-year-olds to buy ammunition. You have to be 21 now to buy ammunition. There's no sense to that. We have military people that are 17, 18, 19, 20. I went in the Navy when I was 17. According to this bill, I can't buy ammunition. Now I can go on. I was a corpsman in the Navy, and then I was also a navigator. I could navigate an entire Navy ship, but I can't buy a 45 round in a gun shop. This is some of the stupidest things that they just want to take away your Second Amendment rights. This other one, 003, will basically take away any gun that's considered an automatic, semi-automatic. Have automatics are illegal. Semi-automatics, which includes most 1911 frames, any kind of pistol that has a detachable magazine. I mean, that's part of the bill, is anything with a detachable magazine. You're looking at most of the guns that anybody would be able to buy in a gun store. You will not be able to buy these anymore. We're going to be putting out many of our gun shops are going to be putting them out of business, which is the intent, by the way. That's why they do that. They said, oh, no, this is for safety. It's never been about safety. The only time you're safe is when somebody with a good guy with a gun is in the room. It's the only time you're actually really safe. That's why police carry guns.
Right.
If guns were really the problem, the police wouldn't carry. The military wouldn't carry. It doesn't make sense. So this is just another, what we call a gun grab. They're trying to take away our Second Amendment rights, which, by the way, the Second Amendment says no infringement. All these different laws that are passed are infringements.
So what is the recourse in terms of that? Are there then lawsuits and things like this? And I heard one of the representatives talking about sending money to, other states and things like this with the ammo bill. It's like, it does seem counterproductive and not necessarily protecting people when it's just an 18-year-old that can't buy ammo versus a 26-year-old. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Again, you have to remember, the reason that they're doing this is because they want to get rid of all ability of the average citizen to be able to stand up against the government. They won't ever say that out loud, but that's what it is. It's Marxism. Okay, so what we're doing is we're running all of these gun shops, these people that sell guns, ammunition, all that kind of stuff. We're running them out of the state. Well, we know, I can name 4 or 5 companies, well, more than that, companies that have moved up to Wyoming, to Cheyenne area. And so then what we're doing is we're telling all the people in Colorado, you got to go up there and buy stuff. You're going to have to give them your money. They get your tax money, all this kind of stuff. And the Democrats that are so much about, they have to have all of your money. They want to tax you like crazy so they can have all your money. They're sending the money out of the state. It's counterintuitive, but here's the thing. They care more about you not having a Second Amendment right than having the tax cut. They'll still grab every single penny they can from you, but it won't be for guns because they don't want them anywhere near. They don't want them in schools. So then they take VSOs away from schools and then shootings happen. They don't want people to have guns. And so then when a shooting happens out on the street, nobody has a gun to defend themselves. Only the criminals have guns. And they're not waiting to see if they can buy a gun in Colorado. They're getting guns from all over the United States and they're getting them illegally.
Yeah. There are a few, and Engage did an interview with someone about Faster Colorado. I can't recall the name off the top of my head because I wasn't the one that did the interview, but we did interview about that in terms of schools and stuff, getting their teachers and whatnot to carry.
Yeah. Faster Colorado is a great program. It's one of the best I've seen. I'm very familiar with how they work and their leadership and everything. That's what they do. Is they train teachers and they train administration first, the importance of having teachers armed on campus, and then they train the teachers and then they certify them to be able to to carry on campus. One teacher with a firearm can stop a mass shooting. Now, they're attacked constantly because, well, that's not safe until it's your child that's standing in that classroom and somebody comes in with an AR with a lot of ammunition, and that one teacher can stop that person. They like to make it, they lie about this stuff and they twist it into something that it's not. But one good guy with a gun can stop literally dozens or hundreds of people from being killed.
So circling back to SB3, my understanding is that there were amendments made in the Senate. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that works. But my understanding is that the amendments weren't good, that they made the bill almost worse.
Yeah, here's the tricky thing with a gun bill. So it happens in the Senate, it can happen in the House, either one. You can actually put amendments on a bill in committee, but they present the bill and then you can say, well, we want to change this thing or we want to change this. I'll give you an example on the ammunition bill. This was an amendment that was put on that, I guess it's a good amendment because it allows a carve out. The problem is when you have a bill that is unconstitutional, and any bill that deals with the Second Amendment and tries to take the right way is unconstitutional. Any bill that says you have to have longer waiting periods, or you have to have this age group can buy this type of gun, this age group, or you need a permit to carry a gun. Those are all infringements. They are not constitutional, and the Supreme Court has knocked down many of those and will continue. And you'd asked earlier, what do we do about this? Well, groups like RMGO and I think it's CSSA, they're going to be suing over this stuff. These bills are not constitutional, and they will immediately go into lawsuits because we said this before on the House floor. We tell the Democrats, this is not a constitutional bill, and we read right out of the Constitution where it's breaking the law. And they say, we don't care, sue us. They know they're not constitutional, but they know it takes money, time, and energy to wrap this stuff up in court. And so then they just present an unconstitutional bill, and it may take years for us to unwind this. Well, an amendment that was put on the ammunition bill was, of all of the ammunition that cannot be sold, no ammunition can be sold to someone under 21, they said, unless it's rimfire, which means like 22 or 25, 17, 25 caliber, stuff like that. Those can be rimfire. A lot of them are rimfire. Instead of hitting the middle of the bullet in the back to discharge the bullet, it hits on the edge. So those are carve outs, and I guess it's good because now a 19-year-old girl that's being stalked by some freak can buy 22. 22 takes a lot more 22 rounds to stop a drug-addicted freak that's about to rape you or something than 145. And so I guess it's a legitimate carve-out, I guess, except when we do these little carve-outs, what I see is happening is that we are legitimizing that this is a bill that should be turned into law, and so we're going to make the bill better. The problem is it's an unconstitutional bill that's breaking the law, so I struggle with the carve-outs. So going back to 003, they did make some changes in the Senate. The bill that we got presented, that we're getting presented to us this week in committee, is just a horrible bill. It doesn't, no, nothing was fixed. It's an unconstitutional, and I will argue it that way on the floor. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal to do this, but the Democrats do not care. And so it's going to be passed, and it'll be fought in courts.
And do you think the governor will sign it?
Well, here's the tricky thing with the governor. Governor Polis wants to be president so bad. He's been being groomed by the World Economic Forum for quite a few years now. This is also part of the blueprint. That's a book you can go check out and read. He's had this plan for a very long time. He wants to be president. And if he signs a gun bill that is this bad, that is this unconstitutional, and is such an attack against the Second Amendment, he will not be elected president. And he knows that. Now, sometimes the people that are advising him, and maybe, well, I know even the governor sometimes thinks like this. He thinks inside the bubble of Colorado, which we are a very corrupt system in Colorado. Our courts are corrupt. 10th Circuit, Supreme Court. Remember that this is the same Supreme Court, Colorado Supreme Court, that said Trump could not be on the ballot. And the Supreme Court of the United States slapped it down 9-0 and basically said, you guys are crazy in Colorado. This is not legitimate. Okay, so this is the courts we deal with in Colorado. It will go through the system in Colorado, and we'll have to appeal and appeal and appeal to get it outside Colorado and actually into the hands of legitimate judges, legitimate courts that are not broken and corrupt. And that'll be a big mess. Polis does not want that on his hands. I think there's a chance he won't sign it because once you get outside the goofiness that is Colorado on these things, he won't be elected.
Interesting. And so I asked this earlier when I said, and you did clarify that a bill can be amended in committee. Do you think that SB 3 was, even though you're saying that you believe it's an unconstitutional bill, et cetera, it was amended, that didn't help. So it was made worse?
Yeah, I don't know how it could be worse, but it definitely wasn't made better.
Okay.
That's taking a rotten tomato and it's got rotten all over it, and you cut off one side of the rotten. The rest of it's still rotten. I didn't see anything in the bill that. So the way that the system works, you go whichever side of the house, side of the chambers, whichever lower or upper chamber it starts in, center of the house. First, it goes to their committee, then to their floor. Then it goes back to the other side's committee, and then to their floor. So we could see some amendments come out this week on it through the House, but they're not. It's not going to make it better. It's going to make anything that's going to happen at this point is just going to make it more convoluted and confused, and then it's going to come to the House floor. There is, there's nothing good that came out of the amendments. Nothing.
Okay. So final question for you then. In terms of, you obviously had a job, still have a job as pastor and got involved. What would you say to someone who wants to be civic minded, but maybe running for office is a little bit of a step too far? What would you suggest to them in terms of staying informed and getting involved?
Okay. So when you say run for office, let's unpack that a little bit, because there's a lot of things you can do. It's not like running for the House or the Senate, okay? I think the biggest thing that's going on across the United States, and we know for sure this is the biggest battlefield in Colorado, is school boards. We need people to consider running for school boards. Well, some people see that as office, some people don't. I think if you are a good conservative minded person, and I also want to add a Christian to that, if you're a conservative Christian, you should run for school board. We need your voice on the school board, because this is where our kids are involved. This is where our children are. But you can also get involved where you're not necessarily running, but you're engaged in that concept by sitting on different groups, sitting on committees. When things are going down in school boards, you go to the school board. When things are going down at the city council, you go to the city council meetings and you speak your voice. You don't have to be elected into something to say, wait a second, I do not agree with what is happening here. and I want to defend my children. I want to defend my freedom. I want to defend the Second Amendment, any of these kinds of things. And you can come to the House, also to the Capitol, and you can testify on bills. You can testify in committee. That's where the people get to speak, is in committee, and come to these committees. And even if you have to stay there till 1 or 2 at night. I was so amazed last week with my bill that was basically saying parents should have the rights, all rights over their children's medical issues. So if there needs to be a medical procedure done, the parent should be the one that sign off on that, not the child or a school or a counselor or somebody else. And there were so many people arguing against that. It says the parents are the problem, that a 12-year-old should be able to make their own medical decisions. The parents are the problem. There were people that stayed at the Capitol till 1:30 in the morning and got up and testified at 1:30 in the morning. I mean, it was bringing me to tears to see the strength of people that say, I don't care what it takes. I am going to speak truth to this craziness, this stupidity, these mental health issues that are going on. And I was proud of them. You can do that kind of stuff. Get engaged, get involved, do something. But I think one of the worst things to do is just sit back and complain and then not even vote. I hear that. You got to vote. You got to get out. You got to do the stuff. And we got to do this together.
And isn't there an option to even testify online?
Yes. You can Zoom in and you just go on to the Capitol website and you ask to go to this committee. It's sometimes a little convoluted, but I've said to people many times, if you don't know how to navigate the system, call me. I will walk you through that. The day before, 2 days before, something. I'll show you how to get there, show you how to sign up, and then you go online, and then you just sit there and wait until you hear yourself called on your computer or your phone or whatever, and then you take the opportunity and you speak. And we see you on this big screen or on the wall, depends on which room you're in, and we can see you, we can hear your voice, and you get the same amount of time, do all the other stuff, and you get to testify online. So then you can literally be waiting at your house at 1:30 in the morning, and I hope you stay awake.
Awesome. Well, I've learned a lot.
Go till late at night, sometimes you're testifying at 10:30 in the morning.
Right.
Right. So
sure. Well, thank you very much, Representative Bottoms. I've learned a lot, and best of luck with your next race.
Yeah, thank you very much. Together, I know we can take back Colorado. That's what we're going to do.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.